Hi, I'm Sid, CEO and co-founder at GitLab, and this video is about dogfooding. Dogfooding is using our own features, so using GitLab itself to do our work. And the first person I ever worked with at GitLab, Marin, is with me in this call because he said today there's some common misconceptions and inside GitLab about dogfooding, and we should talk about it. Marin, take it away.
Thanks, Sid. I wanted to clarify a couple of things when it comes to dogfooding, because something that I keep hearing is, I can write a script in 5 minutes to get this done. Why do I need to go through multiple levels of product to figure out how to get this done? I can write it in 5 minutes.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of aspects to it. First of all, dogfooding takes longer. Like contributing something to our product instead of making it a script that runs through an API or something like that, it takes longer. But there's big advantages. If you make it into GitLab, it's something that benefits over 100,000 organizations that are using GitLab. Another advantage is that you give other people the possibility to contribute. Like hopefully those people using it will add to the feature and it will automatically get better. Also, you don't have to maintain any infrastructure. Now it's part of GitLab. It's not a separate piece of one of infrastructure in some repo that you forgot to give people permission to, etc. So it's okay if it takes longer in order to dogfood a feature and make it a functionality in GitLab instead of using GitLab as an API or something else that's not dogfooding. The second misconception is that you have to go to product to get a feature into GitLab. Product decides what our engineers that are focused on product, will work on. They don't decide about contributions from the outside, but they also don't decide when you add something to GitLab that you weren't tasked with. So if you're like, for example, an infrastructure, and you need something, you add it to GitLab, you can do so without any product involvement. You are just seen as another person from the wider community contributing to GitLab. As long as it meets the definition of done, it should go in. Product managers don't decide what gets added to GitLab. GitLab is an open source project. Our people just send us code sometimes. They don't have to go through a product manager. That's true for the wider community. That's true for people contributing from GitLab who are working at GitLab, but who weren't asked to do that by a PM.
Right. That's all great in theory, but I do have a deadline to hit. Like I need to deliver something for this release or from like something I needed to deliver yesterday. And this will slow me down considerably. I'm going to miss my deliverable.
Yeah, it's a trade-off. And I think it's sometimes you just don't have the time to make it into a GitLab feature, and that's okay. I think what's really important is that you make an explicit trade-off. Like, hey, this is the problem. These are the two routes. This is how long it takes adding it to GitLab. This takes how long it takes without adding it to GitLab. And this is kind of how fixed my deadline is. This is what I think, how attractive I think this feature will be for other people, how popular I expect it to be. But it's very important that it is an explicit trade-off and that you label it with, we just made a new label called Rebuild in GitLab. So make it explicit, make it visible, and don't underestimate things. For example, we had a lot of abuse features we built outside of GitLab, but guess what? Now Debian, KDE are using their own GitLab service. They're gonna have to deal with abuse as well. So don't discount the fact that the GitLab ecosystem is growing and it's getting more and more diverse.
All right, so if I prototype something outside of GitLab, so I tried maybe a feature, it doesn't really work the way I wanted to. I saw that fixing the thing or adding something to the feature will take a bit longer. I can just prototype a bit, and then when I prototype and see what's happening there, compare what the feature is in GitLab and what my prototype is doing, and see how I can marry the two. Is that correct?
Maybe. Depends. But I think we've learned something in other parts of GitLab. We learned that, for example, if you want to change the process at GitLab, don't start with a presentation or a Google Doc. Like if it has to end up in the handbook, start with it in the handbook, because it's much harder to transition it later on. And it frequently doesn't happen, and it leads to a lot of dysfunction. So if it's something that probably should end up in the product, start with it in the product. And it's okay to put it behind a feature flag or do something else to reduce the impact.
All right. But I'm not a UX engineer and I'm not a front ender, and this has a front end and UX component. So won't this significantly slow me down, because I will have to get write-offs from all of them? And I know that you said product is not responsible for getting this in, but the definition of done includes UX and front end. I don't know how to do that, and I cannot count on my teammates to help me on that, because this is not their task. What do I do then?
Yeah, I think the definition of done says UI has to work and UX has to work. But where if we normally build a feature, product kind of identifies a need, UX makes sure there's a design and a flow for it, and then we build it. In this case, if you're just building it, I think the bar is way, way lower. Look, it has to work. It has to, people should not press the wrong button. But it's not like it should be very polished. If it's a bit ugly and rough around the edges, UX-wise, we can fix that later. So if it gets popular, that's fine. It shouldn't contain bugs. It shouldn't drag the rest of the application down. But we much rather have a feature in which we can then polish than you getting slowed down and then deciding not to contribute. So everything in GitLab is an iteration, and making it more beautiful can happen after you contribute it. It's not something that necessarily happens before you contribute it.
All right, so I get it done to the best of my ability, and I send it up for review, but I'm not getting any input from engineering part responsible for this part of the code base. So it's not it's just falling between the cracks. What do I do then? I'm blocked on my work. I cannot continue. I'm trying to build it in the product, but it's not coming up. So what next?
Yeah, so one of our sub-values at GitLab is unblocking someone else is more important than your own work. So if people are kind of stuck waiting for a review or something like that, that is your first priority and not your own work. So I think it'd be good to kind of reach out and see whether there are merge request coaches or engineering managers who can help you. And if push comes to shove, even escalate via your own manager. It should be obvious. You put in all the work, you just need the review. That can be a higher priority than someone starting from scratch and having to build all the code. So in general, we should prioritize reviews over building things ourselves.
So I got someone to review that code of mine that I shipped, but the direction I chose is different to the direction that is coming in 6 to 12 months. And I'm not allowed to get this in, but I still need to resolve the problem now. How do I get the two? Yeah,
that's a good question. I think it depends a bit. So if you're kind of having technical decisions where it's really overlapping in a weird way with something else, that's not great. So if you change the data structure of GitLab in a way that you're going to hinder future improvements to the product compared where we want it to go, that's not good. And we probably can't merge it. If it's the product manager has other ideas and there's already UX design, but it's not planned for 6 months. But yeah, the data structure is generally the same and the code seems malleable and doesn't impede any future improvements, then I don't think that's a good reason to delay something, and we should probably merge it.
Awesome. Well, those are the questions I had for you. So thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Marin.